podcast. My name is Yowela Chomba. Welcome to the viewers and listeners across the country. As you've heard, we are live on simulcast on Power FM Lusaka, Power FM Kabwe, Ya FM, and Power FM Livingston, but also live on Beats TV, channel 92 on Topstar. Today's guest, he's no stranger to politics. He came on the scene in 2016. Took part in his first elections in 2016 and also in 2021, but then went on sabbatical, but he's back, and we have him on the show this morning. We've got Mr. AndyFord Banda, who is the president for PAC. Welcome to the Political Podcast, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Yowela.
Yeah.
I'm happy to be here on Power FM,
and
all other platforms that are streaming us. We also want to thank the listeners that have joined in. Yeah.
No, it's good to have you. I know this has been a long time coming, but let's hear what you've got to tell us. But just remind the viewers that we'll open phone lines sometime during the show, so just be mindful. The lines will be placed on the screen. But for those that are listening in, just take the numbers down in advance. It's 0955 997 997, and of course 0979 192 485. So let's get into it, Mr. Banda. 2021 comes. You didn't do very badly. At least you are not Mr. Zero, if I'm not mistaken. But then you went on sabbatical, and I asked this. I want to start from that because some people have asked me the past few days when you showed that you're the one coming. You went on sabbatical when people were expecting to have, balanced and more fact-based checks and balances for the new Dawn government, but you went quiet, and you are doing so well coming in 2021. Why did you go?
Well, I didn't go quiet, really, and I didn't go on sabbatical. It's just that I was not too noisy.
Yeah.
I didn't join alliances where the noise was.
And as of yesterday,
noise. Yeah. So I was not just part of the political noise, but I was doing something very important, and I was writing a book called Economic System Dismantling.
Yeah.
So what I was trying to do in that book was to build, context and perspective as to why 64 years after independence, or 61 years after independence, we seem not to find the right formula to develop our country. So that's what kept me busy in the last two, last year and the other year. Mm-hmm. So the book is out, it's in book world, and I think that it's important that we bring out political education so that we can make the right decision.
Yeah.
Because the idea really is that when we go to the polls, we should not make decision based on a simple promise. For example, when I'm sworn in the morning, by 14 hours, the dollar is going to appreciate.
Yeah.
So people need to understand. So why is that the dollar is not, that promise is not possible? Why is that it's not possible to actually get cheap minimum at 50 kwacha?
Yeah.
Why is it not possible to get cheap fuel at the figures that were promised by politicians? So what we need is to build context so that people must understand. And I believe that when we form government as PAC, I think political education will be one of the key issues that we have to put in the curriculum.
Yeah.
Real political education, so that as the voters go to the polls, they can make the right decisions, who the best leaders are to take this country forward.
Yeah. No, we'll get into details of the People's Alliance for Change in terms of manifesto and what your plans are. But just quickly, last Friday, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, the Minister of Finance, presented the 2026 national budget, and it's gone up from obviously last year. But before we go into the details, what's your take on the full presentation of the budget?
One thing we need to understand is that this was the UPND's budget number 5.
Yeah.
The last budget for the UPND in this term, and hopefully maybe forever. Yeah. Anyway, that was just a joke. So this was a budget number 5. So for us, what we're looking out for were certain key issues. Of course, organically, the budget figures have been increasing. As you've mentioned, last year's budget was at 217 billion kwacha. This year's budget is at 253 billion kwacha. However, the question is that, are we really meeting the needs of the population? are we meeting, the needs of this country, with these budgets? I believe we're not, because the population is growing. And if you remember, in 2022, the Zambia Statistics Agency released a report where they said 60% of Zambians are poor.
Yeah.
Now, the question that we should be asking ourselves is that, what do we need to do to actually reverse the poverty levels? Because 78% of rural populations are poor people.
Yeah.
That is a high figure. So we're just 22% away from declaring rural populations as completely poor.
Yeah.
And the issue is that the poverty levels have been going up. Before this report, remember that the previous one had put 54% of Zambians being poor, but now it has increased to 60%. The previous one had indicated 76% of rural population were poor.
Yeah.
42% of urban. It has now gone to 47. So meaning that things are not getting better. So the question is that with this budget that was presented, the other budgets that the UPND have presented, are we really getting it right somewhere, or what do we need to do? I believe that as we go, and as you've indicated, we believe as SPAC that we need to revolutionize a lot of things. Because again, when you look at the budget, you can see that the government has increased domestic borrowing from about 15 billion to about 21 billion.
Yeah.
Now what that means is that a lot of small businesses will not have access to finance. They will not have loans, because the government will be holding all that money. So we have a lot of questions around the budget. Then also you see that the budget, the government is targeting to produce about 1 million metric tons of copper next year. But if you look at the increase in mineral royalty tax, it doesn't justify. Because according to the budget, the government has, the production of copper is at 820,000 metric tons, and then they're targeting to produce 180,000 metric tons more, by the end of next year. But if you look at the targeted, figure in terms of increment in mineral royalty, it doesn't justify. It's just moving from 7.3 billion to 18.1 billion, in mineral royalty. So there are a lot of questions that we need to ask. Is it that we're not getting enough royalties from the mines? That nowadays the mining sector, is not, getting more. Is not employing a lot of people because of technology. And
the budget being financed, 80% of the budget being financed from domestic revenue. What sort of impact should we expect on the layman over the next 12 months with a budget that is solely relying on domestic revenue?
It's good to talk about financing the budget, with domestic revenue. However, how are we raising that money? And what is the impact on the other side of things?
Yes, that's why I want you to just...
Exactly. So now, we have seen that, there have been toll fees that have been raised. There's been the transaction fees that have been raised on mobile money. And you must remember that the increment of taxes in this year's budget is not isolated. In the last year's budget, there were other taxes that were increased, to actually meet this. Now, the question we should be asking ourselves is that, are we going to manage to just be increasing taxes every year, in order to meet budget needs? And then, are we going to manage to continue crowding out funds, from the banks and just lend it to the government without leaving money for the SMEs? It means that we're making the economy not work. We're not stimulating the economy, because the government is not the only solution that we need. The private sector must be moving. The SMEs must be moving. And for the SMEs to move, we need to make sure that we support them. And the banks have got a bigger role to play. But the challenge we've had from successive governments, even under the UPND, is that we keep borrowing money from the banks, local banks, and that makes it difficult for the SMEs to access, loans which they need to expand, to expand their businesses. And the money, the borrowed money keeps increasing. So the question I'm asking that if borrowed money keeps increasing, then what are we not doing correct? Because we can talk about debt restructuring, but the UPND came into government 4 years ago, and they started talking about debt restructuring. In 2032, there will be certain debts that will be ready.
Yes.
But these 4 years of the UPND, how much money have they put aside, to actually meet the needs of 2032?
Yeah.
Or what economic plans do they have, to make sure that by 2032 we pay? Because if they think that by actually increasing production of copper is going to help us, pay those debts, they're mistaken. That's not the only thing. We need to actually restructure our economy to make sure that, we have more players locally that are playing in the economy, and this is what we're going to discuss when we get into our park policies.
No problem. One other aspect I want to just touch on finally on the budget is the CDF. From the social aspect, it's increased from 36 million to 40 million kwacha allocation. Looking at CDF over the 4 years, do you think that has worked? Is it justified increasing to 40 million in the next one year?
I don't think that it is justifiable to borrow money to increase CDF, because literally we're just borrowing money to increase CDF. I would rather CDF is maintained maybe for 30 million per constituents, so that the other money can actually be left to the banks to give out to the entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
And CDF, I want to say that CDF is not a bad thing. It's helping in one or the other because of the targets that it has been given.
Yeah.
When we go out for campaigns, you find that there are certain schools, that like makeshift schools where they're not conducive, for children to learn. You find that children are not sitting on desks. So in that regard, the CDF is trying to bridge that gap, which is very commendable, to make sure that the needs of the local people are met. But is it sustainable for us to keep increasing CDF? And has it really worked, the way it was supposed to work?
Yeah.
You get the point, huh?
Yeah.
So for me, it was a good idea by President HH to increase, or the UPND government and President HH to increase CDF from where it was at 1.6 million to about 25 million. But we should have capped it at 30 million instead of borrowing money from the banks to keep pushing that. But we do understand that probably this could be, the elections coming, so they want to make sure that there's more money that goes in those areas, so that they can go and say, hey, this is what we've done, but it was not justified. If we have to increase the money to borrow just to finance CDF, I don't think that's justified.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll delve on the general issues later. Let's just focus on your mandate as People's Alliance for Change. You got re-elected as president early last month. With this new renewed mandate, what is the plan for PAC going forward? We've got 11 months towards elections.
I think the mandate is to continue from where we've been.
Yeah.
And obviously, it just makes sense that, to the leadership, it made sense that I continue as the president of the party, looking at the fact that we have participated in elections in the past. We participated in 2016, where I came out number 4. We participated in 2021, again, I came out number 4. So we have to keep pushing. Politics is about resilience, it's about you have to keep pushing.
Yeah.
Okay? So, I think that the strategy in going to 2026 is different, because dynamics change. When we were participating in elections between 2016 and 2021, we had two giants, the PF and the UPND. We participated in by-elections, competing with the PF and the UPND. We participated in places like, Lusaka Mearo, if you remember, we came out number 3. We participated in council chairpersons elections in Chilubi Island. We came out number 3. We were in Ron constituency. We came out number 3. We were in Lukasha. We came out number 3. So we have been participating in elections, and we've been coming out number 3.
Yeah.
Of course, at a national level, we've been coming out number 4. So now the idea of the 2026 elections is to give Zambians the right alternative, because Zambians are looking for an alternative. And I think there's an opportunity for us to actually demonstrate to the Zambian people that what we have as our plans for 2026 and going forward are what the country needs for us to actually move and develop this country.
Yeah.
Because like I've mentioned, looking at the UPND budget of 5 years, it means that we cannot continue as a country to run things as with a mentality of business as usual. There has to be some kind of a revolution that needs to come up in order for us, first of all, to reduce the poverty levels and also to reduce the borrowing that has continued. Okay? And then we have to remember also that there are growing populations. The populations are growing. So how do we ensure that we cater for the needs of the growing population? Yeah. So those are some of the things that we have to look at as we move. So we want to demonstrate to the Zambian people that PAC is the right alternative and that PAC has got the right policies that are going to actually, start reversing the continuous rising of poverty levels in this country.
Yeah. Gauging your performance in the previous elections, as you've just given us a summary, what are your chances in improving on those positions now, especially that you've got so many parties now? Some are being formed. There are some in the grapevine you hear they will be formed. Any possibility of you joining or forming an alliance with other parties to improve your chances of maybe coming out second?
Why should we come out second?
Or first?
Yeah.
The point is, how? What's your strategy in improving
from last time
performance from the last two elections?
Yeah, but also it is about you build a trust in the people. I know that there are a lot of political parties that are coming. There are parties that have been formed, but I think politics is a long-term game. Yeah. Many people want to get into politics and win tomorrow. For us, we've been around for 10 years, my brother. Yeah. Now we are 10 years. We started forming PAC in August 2015. So we are over 10 years now. Yes. So we do believe that, and we've been very consistent. Yes, we can say that I took sabbatical leave for just a short period when I was writing my book, which is very important for the political journey. However, consistency also in terms of policy, consistent in terms of thought line, consistent in terms of the kind of politics that you do is critical. It shows that there's stability in this organization that we're going to entrust with the running of the affairs of the government. There's no way, you can see that there's confusion in PAC. Yeah. And then you still take us into government. It means that, and then when we form government, you start complaining to say, but this government that we've brought in has got a lot of confusion. Yeah. But you can see in the opposition that PAC is full of confused chaps. Yeah. But you still go ahead and give us power. So what we've demonstrated over the years is stability in a lot of ways. And do we think we can work with someone or an organization? Yes. There is no problem working with like-minded individuals, people who want to develop this country. Because what's the point of just winning elections and then we just go there and share jobs? Yeah. We have to make sure that Zambian people's interests are put first. The issue, Mr. Chomba, is that there's a huge task ahead. I think if Zambians must understand that the task of a new government is quite huge. That's the reason why sometimes we get shocked when the UPND say that we have done 80% of what we came to do. I think there's a lack of understanding of what needs to be done. We do understand. I'll give you an example. A World Bank report has indicated that Zambia needs to create 10 million jobs by 2050. Now, that is like 400,000 jobs per year. The UPND has created maybe about 100,000 jobs or 120 since they came into power in the last 4 years. So now the question is that, and those jobs, majority of them have been in the civil service. Yes. A few in the private sector. Because the truth of the matter is that the business environment has been quite stiff, looking at the energy crisis, looking at the fact that we were coming from COVID. So definitely there's certain things that we cannot argue to say, the business environment has been stiff. Now, if we can produce 100,000 jobs in 4 years, it means that we're not catching up on the 400,000 job target per year. Now, and when we talk about 400,000 jobs target per year, we're not even including those that are not, that have been waiting for jobs from the many years. We're not even including those that don't have sustainable jobs, like those that are doing cash for work. You know, people don't even have a pay slip or anything, who just get handouts. We're not talking about that. We're not talking about people that, you know, they just go out in the streets and sell. That's the 400,000 jobs that we need to start producing now. Now, the point I'm trying to drive is that for us to meet that target, we need to make sure that in 2026 we elect a government that is going to put in policies that will make it possible, you know, for those jobs to be created, right? Now, I know people are frustrated, and you know, we need change. Of course, all of us want change, but what kind of change do we want? Do we just want to put in a group of people in government, and then again we start complaining and say, okay, we shall see you in 2031? I think for once, Zambian people must pay attention. It's important to form alliances, but I think the alliances that we should form must make sure that it is going to save the people of Zambia. Because trust me, the young people out there who are listening, you know, the parents who are listening, there is no time to waste. Jobs need to be created in this country. Poverty levels need to start reducing, otherwise it's going to be chaotic. That's the reason why you have young people that are abusing alcohol and they're called junkies, because of the fact that, you know, they don't have opportunities. And what's going to happen is that if we continue on this trajectory, in the near future, you will find these young people now are going to become criminals, whereas some have already become criminals. Because, you know, if you look at, I've been following, you know, the stories that have been happening in South Africa, especially with the South African Police Service.
Yeah.
There is a man called General Kwanas, who is the head of police in KwaZulu-Natal. And he indicated that the crime that happens in KwaZulu-Natal is as a result of drugs. There's a link between drugs and crime. Okay? So the job that they have is to make sure that they reduce the flow of drugs, you know, in the communities. Now, the point I'm trying to drive is that these young people in Zambia that don't have jobs, if we don't do something drastic to ensure that they start doing something, they are going to start abusing drugs, and then they'll become criminals. Because when you're under the influence of drugs, you can get a pistol and shoot someone, like what's happening in KZN, in KwaZulu-Natal, you know, or in Johannesburg. It's because of drugs. So we should not let Zambia get to that point where the young people lose hope, they start abusing drugs, and they become hardcore criminals. Then this country becomes ungovernable. Yeah. So it's quite urgent. So whatever change we need, you know, it has to be reasonable change that really knows what it needs to do for this country. Yeah.
The People's Alliance for Change, maybe just give us some more detail. How is your makeup of the party, and what's your strategy around penetrating the grassroots countrywide in terms of councillor level and of course MP level as you plan for 2026 elections?
Yeah, basically what we need to do is to build the brand. We've been building this brand. That's why we've been protecting it. You know, that's why we don't jump around, because we want to attract the right people on the platform. You know, we want to attract the right people. We have structures across the country, some of which came for the convention, you know, that we had about 4 weeks ago. And then, but we're growing. We do realize that there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. And even as we speak today, you know, we are still recruiting people. We are recruiting people, you know, to join us in many districts across the country, so that by the time it will be August 13, 2026, PAC must be a household name in each and every house. But the biggest job we have is now between now and May, where we're inviting, you know, people that want to stand as MPs, councillors, mayors, to come and join PAC. PAC is the cleanest platform at the moment, and that has been consistent and participated in a lot of elections. So I believe that PAC is the right vehicle that people can use, you know, to become MPs. And we're discussing the number of people already who are aspiring as MPs. You know, some of them are sitting MPs. We're talking to them, and that's the reason why we want to actually increase our activities, our visibility, so that people should understand what policies PAC is bringing to the table.
Yeah, how would you describe the political atmosphere right now countrywide? Of course, you're not involved in certain mingalato, at least I hope, but in general, how do you look at the situation politically in the country right now?
I think politically the situation is not conducive.
Yeah.
First of all, you cannot be operating in a country where people are scared to just criticize the government, and then you have an intolerant government. You know what I'm saying? A government that just would want to take you out, even just for the silly stuff. So the political environment should not be like that. The idea of democracy was to actually ensure that people have got the right, to speak out their mind. Of course, we don't support, insults. We don't support people insulting each other, either on social media or otherwise. But it should not be a situation where these laws, for example, cybersecurity law, is it's so broad that only those that are in power can decide what crime you have committed. And if you look at these laws, they come from way back in terms of how these systems are done. From colonial times, even the colonialists used to create such kind of laws, make them so broad, so that the net is wider, to catch critics, right? So the political environment should not be like that. It should be a conducive environment where ideas are flowing, and where people are free to discuss things without fearing that they might injure the government, right? So as PAC, one of the things that we want to do once we form government is to reverse this cybersecurity and bring in a clear law in cyberspace. There are certain things that are there, that obviously are needed, but there are a lot of things that can be abused by those that are in power. And we have been advising this thing. We have seen many laws that have been created. Look at the cybersecurity itself. The first people who started this were the PF, but today they're suffering from the same. Now the UPND have actually made it so draconian that if tomorrow PAC forms government, and if they want to abuse it against them, they can easily abuse the same laws that were created by the other people. So we need to actually be looking, when we're creating laws, we need to be looking at things from a long-term perspective, because we should not think that we'll always be there forever. There's always a time when change comes, it definitely comes. There are many people that have been in government who thought their time won't come, but it came.
Yeah. So I think we'll open phone lines at this point as we continue having a chat with Mr. AndyFord Banda, who is the president for People's Alliance for Change. So if you want to take part in the conversation via asking a question or just a contribution, you can call on 0955 997 997 or 0979 192 485. Feel free to call in, pass your contribution or question to Mr. Banda. You did say that you've branded PAC to stand out as you make it more attractive, not only obviously to members but also to the electorate come 2026. Would you mention maybe one or two very key aspects of standing out? Because most political parties in the country, we just know the president and maybe number twos, number threes in the party. Beyond that, it goes quiet. So how are you making PAC stand out in a place like, say, Shangombo or Mporokoso, for example?
So like I've said, we're a growing political party.
Yeah.
And if you had attended our convention, you would have seen that all the provinces were represented. But we also realize the fact that there's a lot of work ahead.
Yeah.
And our teams are on the ground, whether it's in Kasama, it's in Luwingu, it's in Mansa, whether it's in Solwezi, or whether it's in Livingstone or Mongu. They're working and trying to recruit more people.
Yeah.
But the issue of standing out as PAC and the issue of standing out as any political party is the issue of policy. Because the idea of forming a political party, it is to actually try and sell a vision that takes people out of poverty.
Yeah.
And that's what people are looking for. People are looking for an organization that is going to take them out of poverty. People are looking for an organization, a political party that once they give it chance, it's going to actually give them opportunities. The young people are looking for jobs. In Kabunombali na Papatuesa Monoktirati Abaiche, by they were gonged with the jobs from ZNS or something like that. Because they're desperate. They are looking for jobs. So a political party's branding or standing out, it really depends mainly on what policies you're going to actually implement once you form government.
Yeah. The Electoral Commission recently, I think yesterday, announced that they are commencing their mass voter registration, starting from 13th of October to 11th of November, 1 month. Do you think that's enough time to capture as many voters as possible?
That is just for the mass voter registration, but it's not enough time. We had hoped that the time, could be extended. However, many people that want to vote must remember also that this process is ongoing.
Yeah.
So they should not relent, but it would be important to take advantage of this mass registration that is happening. Just like NRCs, the government sometimes does, mass registration.
Yeah.
And I think in certain areas it's still going on. However, the issues of NRCs is a daily thing. It still happens. So obviously there will be a cutoff point for 2026 election, the ECZ, but the people of Zambia must take advantage of this, mass registration, because the chances are that this thing will happen near their areas. So it will be easier for them to actually get captured and make sure that they have a voter's card. It will be very important, really, in as much as maybe some of the people may not know who they are going to vote for in 2026, but at least to be armed in advance, to have the tools. Better you're prepared with the tools than just sit there. 2026, there's still a long time yes, it's near, but they say a day is a long time in politics. Yeah. So I think people should actually take advantage of this period and make sure that they go and vote. Yeah,
no problem. 0955 997 997 and 0979 192 485. We've got Mr. AndyFord Banda, who is the president for the People's Alliance for Change. Feel free to call in and pose question so that you can take part in this discussion. 0955 997 997 and 0979 192 485. Mr. Banda, I'm sure you've been affected by the issue of energy. Going into the elections, do you feel, I'll use South Africa as an example. South Africa going through massive load shedding before elections. Towards elections, they moved from level 5 and they dropped down to level 1, and just before elections, they actually had no load shedding. Do you see us having that sort of experience? But before you answer that question, let's pick up a caller. Good morning. Hello, good morning. Good morning, ma'am. Your name and where you're calling us from? Madam Denda from Matero. Please, if you can turn down your radio or TV so that we can hear you clearly, and then you can please go ahead and pose the question or contribution to Mr. Banda.
Hello?
Okay, we've lost her there. Yeah, so 0955 997 997 0979 192 485. Yeah, so do you see us going the same route with regards energy? Because I think recently I've got friends who live in the in the townships, and they're saying that so far they're enjoying much longer hours of power than before.
Yeah, of course it is okay.
Yeah. We have another caller. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm okay. How are you? Your name and where calling us from?
Okay, my name is Mr. Likando. I'm calling from Kitwe.
Mr. Likando?
Yes, from Kitwe.
Please go ahead. We've got Mr. Banda here, president for PSE.
What I can say is we need the number for the president,
okay,
so that we can start mobilizing on the ground.
Okay.
Because it seems like it's not on the ground, some other part need some people to build the ground so they can balance the party.
Yeah, I'm sure he would be free to share his number right now, if he doesn't mind, so that you take it down, Mr. Likando.
Okay, if you can give me the number, then I'll appreciate it.
We shall say it as a problem.
All right. Yeah, so that's Mr. Likando from Kitwe. Yes, maybe you can go ahead and answer. Do you see us going through that same pattern as we go towards elections? But nevertheless, even as we cross in the new, after the elections, what would be your plan around energy should you be president?
I think what we need a robust, you want to pick up a call?
Yes.
Okay.
Good morning, your name and where you're calling us from? Okay, we lost her. Please go ahead.
What we need is a robust financial services sector.
Yeah.
Apart from the fact that the South African people, had power going to an election.
Yeah.
But they also sorted out some of their problems.
Yeah.
Okay? They actually, I think, if I'm not mistaken, most of the problems were sorted out by solar. Like a household solar.
Yeah.
I think they even managed to do about 5,000 megawatts. But it's because the financial services sector was responding.
Yeah.
And the South African financial services sector is robust.
Yeah.
Our plan as PAC is to make sure that we come out with a financing scheme where people can get solar as a measure for the immediate. And they are able to pay for that equipment on the meter. So they could be buying power like they're just doing the normal, but they're paying for the equipment.
Yeah.
You get a point?
Yeah.
That is our immediate per household. On the other hand, we have to continue looking at alternative energy sources because we have depended too much on hydro. And with the climate change and with the changes with the climate change, we don't know when and which year we will have water or which year we will not have water.
Yeah.
The other part is that in order to attract, investors in the energy sector, we need to make sure to implement cost-reflective tariffs. Because without cost-reflective tariffs, we're not going to have investors in the energy sector. Tetumwingira mu business yako ati mnepanga loss. Ngamwingira mu business mnepanga profit. That is the reality today about our energy sector. There's no much money to be made. That's why abantu badewa yawo kuingira mu business. So what we need to do is to come up with the proper cost-reflective tariffs. Now, we have a population, like I said, 60% of Zambians are poor. Can they afford the proper cost-reflective tariffs? Or can the government afford to actually subsidize? So let me start with the second question.
Yeah.
The government cannot afford to subsidize because they don't have money.
And of course, we've got the control of the IMF.
In terms
of we can't subsidize because obviously we're following some regulations.
Not really, but the government just doesn't have money. That's the reason why they keep increasing the taxes. That's the reason why they're borrowing money to finance the budget.
Yeah.
Because if they had the money, it would be a different case. So the best way is to make sure that we focus on empowering Zambians.
Yeah.
So we as PAC, we want Zambians to be empowered. Yesterday I was, chatting with people on my social media pages where I said, we have to protect the economy for the local people. That is how we're going to create, opportunities. For example, I said, why should foreigners be selling second-hand vehicles in Zambia? Because it's not like Zambians cannot manage to sell second-hand vehicles.
Yeah.
Right now, it takes, motor vehicle dealers a month or two, even sometimes 3 months to sell one vehicle. But if we remove that competition of foreigners, number one, we'll increase the sales for our local people who are going to put that money within the economy.
Yeah.
Also, we're going to allow other people to get into that space who are Zambians. So that's how it should work. Other Zambians will say an opportunity. So we need to start from there. Why should foreigners be making blocks in this country? Why should foreigners be running, cleaning companies? So what we've been focusing on as a country over the years, because of politics and political expedience, is that we provide cheap things. But how do you provide cheap things when you don't even have the money to actually subsidize those budgets? So it's something that cannot work. So what we need to focus on is how do we create more opportunities, more jobs for the Zambian people? And that is where PAC's policy is on. So one of the things we need to do is to dismantle this economic system that was left behind by the colonialists, where we, the owners of the country, are just spectators. We can't even participate in a lot of these businesses. So we need to protect our own.
Yeah.
You know, even in the mining sector, we should not just be suppliers or have artisanal mining licenses. We must be owners of the mines, just like the Dangotes are owners of the, they run an oil refinery in Nigeria.
Yeah. So let's keep your thought on mining, because I have a question around that. Good morning, your name and where you're calling us from?
Good morning, how are you?
Fine, thank you. Please tell us your name and where you're calling us from.
Yes, please. I'm calling from Kalundi Market.
Kalundi Market, please tell us your name.
Pastor Mutale.
Mr. Mutale.
Pastor Mutale.
Pastor Mutale, please go ahead. We've got Mr. Banda in studio.
My Banda Mabuka Shon.
Bila mashuke wa pastor.
Mabuka Taruka. I love the way you are coming out, very sober, and that's the politics you want in Zambia. Rather than politics of calling names. For you is what is your manifesto in your free education? Because already HH got free education, and I've seen people benefiting, and I'm one of them who is benefiting. I'm not paying any way when my son or daughter she's coming on an examination class. So what is your policy on the free education? Because HH has already done it, has already made the foundation from Kaunda. The session was Kaunda, and it went to HH. Now, what is your manifesto on free education and the CDF? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Pastor Mutale. So maybe you can tackle his question as we wait for more calls, and then you can go to the issue that I have mining.
Basically, on the CDF, if you are listening, we mentioned that it's a good thing that CDF was introduced.
Yeah.
Because in as much as it's not a game changer like they would say, because it's just 2.5% of the budget, the total budget, so it cannot change the game. How does it change the game when it's just 2.5% of the budget? Okay, but it's tackling certain small issues that we are lagging behind, especially in rural areas. Probably there was a ramshackle school, they didn't have desks and all that. So slowly, it's getting there, and with time it will have impact. However, like I mentioned earlier, we don't think that it's important to increase CDF to borrow money from the banks and leave out the entrepreneurs. Yeah. Because the more the government keeps money, the more we leave out, the entrepreneurs. Now, in terms of free education is also good, but it has to be improved. Now, to improve, the challenge that we have, Mutale, is on the revenue side of things. And how do we create more revenue in this country, and how do we create more opportunities, for the Zambian people? That is where the key issue here is, and that is where PAC comes in, because we are saying that if we continue on this trajectory, it will be difficult for us to actually create the 400,000 jobs per year that we're supposed to create. Yeah. It will be difficult for us to reduce the poverty levels, which is now over 60%. So we need to revolutionize how we do things. And one of the ways to revolutionize is to make sure that Zambians start owning this economy. And that is where we stand as PAC. That's why our slogan for 2026, it says, this time is time for Zambia. Yeah.
Okay, indeed. So continuing from your points on mining and empowering, sort of pushing just being suppliers, we should take part in mining. How do you think government should handle policy around mining? I mean, we had the most recent gold rush in Kasempa. Well, up to now you still hear stories. But in comparison, I read that Uganda found deposits of gold worth trillions of dollars. I don't know how they'll handle that. But as a country, as Zambia, as PAC, how best do you think government should handle issues around any new,
want to rush, who create that confusion so that they can benefit themselves, right? So one of the things that we can deal with in order to manage the mining sector, especially when there are new discoveries, is to change the governance systems. The governance system must be strong enough and must not be politically motivated. Because every time, Mr. Chomba, when there's there was total confusion. Look at suicide. Look at the God now. Same thing. Now, don't we know what we're supposed to do? The problem we have is governance. Because if the governance system is politically motivated, then there is a problem with that.
And also, I'm aware that these are minerals that government from time we know that we actually have.
Yeah.
And does it look like the discovery is like a new discovery and people act like they're surprised?
Well, they act like they're surprised, because, and that's the reason why the government says that at the moment, they are doing a high-resolution aerial geographical survey of all the minerals, and they are 34% according to what the minister said, and I think the president also mentioned that. Yeah. So that's a good thing, that now we should know where our minerals are. But the issue with us as PAC is that those minerals should not continue going into the foreign hands. We must, once we know that these are the minerals that we have, because there's a lot of money that is being spent. I think in this year's budget we're almost at $1 billion kwacha doing the survey. Now, once those monies, those minerals are found, this idea, of just giving these things to foreigners must come to an end. So for us as PAC, what we want is to make sure that Zambians have a guaranteed role in the economy, whether it's from the mining sector to the lowest, whether it's cleaning, if that's the lowest, we go there.
For most SMEs to take part in a mine, the nature of mining, it requires huge capital inflow.
Yeah.
Do you think Zambian companies have the capacity? Because I don't think they do have the capacity. How would you then, as PAC, ensure that a company owned by Yowela Chomba into mining, once you find deposits, they are able to move in and start mining, so that the money stays in, they employ Zambians, and taxes are paid in Zambia?
The strategy must start now. You must remember that there is projected demand for copper and other rare earth metals because of energy transition. So there'll be a lot of demand for copper. So what the government needs to do now is to partner up with Zambians first and ensure that they have proven mineral deposits. Once the mineral deposits are proven, it will be easy to find partners who will now bring the money. Because now we have a situation, for example, with the cobalt metals, who says they discovered, like Dr. Livingston discovered the Victoria Falls.
Yeah.
200 and there's Mingomba project where they are projecting that they'll be the biggest mining. They'll have the biggest mining in the world. in Africa. The cobalt metals. There's a potential of about 247 million, tons of copper ore there, which is high grade.
Yeah.
At almost 3.something%. Can you imagine that? Now imagine if that mine was given to Zambians. That mine could have changed this country completely. So what we need to do is to actually discover these minerals ourselves. Yeah. We should not give to foreigners to discover. No, we have discovered. Once we discover and we have proved that there are minerals here, we can organize the capital. Because capital is also the assets that we discover is part of the capital.
Yeah. Sorry, we've got a caller. Good morning. Your name and where you're calling us from? Good morning. Your name and where you're calling us from? Charity from Kitwe. Please go ahead. How's Kumukoba? Okay, please go ahead. We've got Mr. Banda here, President for PSC.
Good morning.
Mm-hmm.
What are you going to do about the land? Because it's very difficult for a Zambian citizen to acquire a land. We find that most land, foreigners, they are the ones that acquire land. So what are you going to do about that? That's my question.
Thank you, Charity from Kitra. So maybe you can quickly respond to Madam Charity. But before you do it, okay, the call is gone. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. But Charity,
I think Mr. Chomba here is a holder of one of my books. Of my book.
Yes.
I clearly narira mbere mu book yande that tulefweko okuleka okupera ama foreigners land. That is my position for now. And very good question, Madam Charity. We have to prioritize the giving of land to Zambians. And Zambians must get land. It is their right. Right? We cannot continue giving lands to foreigners who are just fencing this land and doing nothing with it. If you go to Mumbai, there is a company called Amathion Agri. They've got a big land, thousands and thousands of hectares, which they're not doing anything with it. And then you have communities around that area who don't even have land, but there's this foreign company that has got huge, tracts of land, which they're not even using. It's the same things that's happening in Pongo area there. I know there's some farms there that, have big tracts of land which they're not using, and yet the people around there, they're suffering. So can we are we supposed to continue on this trajectory? No. We have to start protecting this land for the Zambians. And as park policy, we shall first of all audit all the land that is in Zambia, and ensure we know who has the land and what they're using that land for. Once we do that, for those that are not using, because there's no point, for example, in Pongwe there's some roads there. And you have farmers who have got big lands which they're not using. There's no point in getting Madam Charity in the middle of nowhere in a bush. And then the government should start building new roads, telecom towers and all those kind of things. No. Let's first deal with the land that's available, that's easy to access, and that can actually bring commercial benefits to the people. So at Charity, we have to be revolutionary. We have to be revolutionaries. It's for us to achieve certain things. You have heard what is happening in certain areas like Burkina Faso. People are becoming Africans are not patient anymore.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why, incumbents who are not meeting the aspirations of the young people are losing elections.
Yeah. Hello, good morning. Your name and you're calling us from?
Morning.
Yes, where are you calling us from, madam? And your name? Mkusa mule tuwina for you?
Kutoka TV hapa?
Mkwe.
Yeah.
Okay, now we are on the political podcast. We have Mr. Anderson Banda, President for People's Alliance for Change. Do you have any question or contribution for him? Okay, so since our friend there doesn't know. So anyway, you are giving us an example of what's happening in the West African, Burkina Faso, Niger.
Yeah,
they've got these proactive policies.
We have to be proactive.
Yeah,
it's now time to protect our own countries.
Yeah,
the young people are not patient. That's why you had change in Malawi, you had change in Botswana, you had change in Senegal, you had change in Ghana, you had change in Liberia, because young people are saying we're not going to eat stories. We want real solutions, and the real solutions ensures that we revolutionize how we do things.
Yeah.
In terms of land, Madam Charity, be rest assured that under the park government, first of all, we have to put a stop to giving land, on a wholesale to foreigners.
Yeah.
There has to be a real reason, and these foreigners, they'll come with stories, say, no, we're going to create jobs. What jobs are they creating?
Yeah.
Just laborers, people get nothing. And then we give them land. Instead of us empowering the same young people to actually be the ones to do the job and own those farms, we prefer, to give foreigners who are going to lie to us. And we have to audit these foreigners based on the plans that they gave us. If those plans are not met, then we have to grab the land from them.
Yeah. Good morning. Hello, good morning. Your name and where you're calling us from?
Good morning.
Yes. Tell us your name and where you're calling us from.
My name is Agnes from Central Phiri.
From Phiri. You've got Mr. Banda in studio. Any question or contribution to the discussion?
I want to tell you.
Yes, well, we're listening. Go ahead.
I want to put my music.
Okay, it's not the platform for that, madam, so we will tell you when to call in. Thank you very much. Yeah. Upcoming musicians, another youth.
Yeah.
Obviously, this all goes down to the issues of employment.
Exactly.
Yeah. As you've said, the youth are not patient. And I think that was the biggest electorate in 2021 elections.
Yeah.
What is the one message you have for the youths? Because obviously numbers have increased and we're going to another election in 2026. What is your biggest promise to the youth if you form government?
I think the youth must first understand why we are where we are. And I think, like I mentioned in the preamble, that is what preoccupied me, to try and put some thoughts together so that young people can understand that we are where we are because of the economic systems that we inherited from colonial times.
Yeah.
So the message for the youth is that, number one, according to the World Bank report, government must create 400,000 jobs every year. That does not include those that have been waiting, like I mentioned.
Yeah.
Now, the 400,000 jobs, obviously, those are the youths. And those that have been waiting are youths as well.
Yeah.
So in order for us to meet those targets, we have to do something different. And the things we need to do, the young people, is that we must own the economy. We must start reversing these colonial systems and start owning the economy.
Yeah.
That is what is going to drive the private sector. That is what is going to drive, employment. And once we do that, we must empower you with businesses. If we say no foreigner should run a cleaning company, and once we clean out the foreigners, who's going to get the opportunity? It's the young people. If we say no foreigner should run a block making company, once the foreigners are out in the block making business, who's going to benefit? It's the young people. Once we say no selling of second-hand vehicles by foreigners, who's going to benefit? It's the young people. It's not being xenophobic, but it's something that must be done if we have to protect our country. Otherwise, we're going to be in a ditch, and we're going to see many more youths starting to abuse drugs and becoming criminals.
Yeah. One of the last questions I'll have for you before I ask to give your closing remarks is around agriculture. Do you think policy around agriculture is working for us? I mean, we're coming from a drought, and then, of course, recently the government announced that we had the bumper harvest, where we have about 4 million metric tons of maize.
3.7.
Of which they felt we could export and remain at the target of 3 million metric tons. Do you think that was a good move, and what would be your policy around agriculture? But before you answer that, maybe we can squeeze in one last caller. Okay, we've lost that caller, so maybe go ahead.
First of all, it's good that, from the drought, where the government had produced 1.7 million tons of maize, because of the drought, they moved to 3.7 million.
Yeah. Just a moment, we've got a caller. Good morning, your name and where calling us from?
My name is Mr. Phiri, calling me from Kalundu.
Mr. Phiri from Kalundu, please go ahead.
Yes, so Mr. Banda, I've got a few questions. I'm a youth myself. Yes, so what it is that some of us, we try these mining things here, they're chasing us from the mine. Agriculture, we're not really getting the loan. We are, as I'm speaking right now, we're a group of youths. We're about 150 of us. We are ready for any support that we want. We are ready to support you as the next president of this country. we are actually a united group, because any project that we can be given, we are willing to work on it, and we are willing to support you, sir. We are behind you.
Okay.
All right. No, thank you very much, Mr. Phiri. Yeah. So maybe as you wind up the issues around agriculture, let's just wind up, and then I'll give you an opportunity, because we've got 2 requests for your number. As you close, you probably share a number, and then the gentleman from Quito will get in touch.
Well, basically, in terms of agriculture, your question was that, are we getting it right?
Yeah.
We must remember that the majority of the people that survive using agriculture are in the rural areas.
Yeah.
Now, if the rural areas are at 78% in terms of poverty, it means that we're not getting it right.
Yeah.
That's the reason why, in as much as we are happy that the government has increased production of maize from 1.7 million last year to 3.7 million, the question is that who's been producing this maize? Is it the commercial farmers or it's the rural farmers? What is the percentage of the rural farmers that are actually in this 3.7 million? Because there's still poverty in those areas. So definitely, what we need is a revolution again in the agriculture sector.
Yeah.
The president announced to say that right now they're giving loans to about 9,000 farmers, and yet they have onboarded 730,000 farmers on FISIP. So you can imagine the gap between those that, the farmers and those that are getting support is quite huge.
Yeah.
So what we need is structures that enables the private sector to come into the rural farmers, so that they can get irrigation equipment and all those kind of things. So our agricultural policy really is based on we want to change the system of FRI buying maize. We want FRI to get into production. So FRI for us will be working with the rural farmers in order to produce, because the farmers need to be given technical skills, they need to be helped to produce more. So instead of FRI buying, hey, bring the maize, what, we want FRI to work with the farmers directly so that they produce.
Yeah.
And I think that is what is going to change this country. And the young people, once we get the agriculture sector right, which employs almost about 60% of the population, it means that incomes in the agriculture, those that are employed in the agriculture sector will go up, and more people will be employed. So for us, agriculture is a quick win. It's a low-hanging fruit. What we just need to do is to restructure the systems around agriculture. Instead of what we've been doing, where we're just giving fertilizers and stuff, we want to make sure that farmers become business people. We want to make sure that farmers take agriculture as a business, as opposed to something that they survive on when they wait for the rains.
Yeah.
Because we want to make sure that farmers can actually have even 2 farming seasons in a year. That is what is going to take out poverty in the rural areas, and that is what is going to make people busy. So for us, we want to invest in there, but we want FRA to stop buying maize, but to get into production.
Yeah.
We also want ZNS to stop doing these things of security, block making, and these businesses that they created. We want also ZNS to work with the rural farmers, train the rural farmers, give them equipment and help them to produce more. I can tell you, once we do that, the country will be producing more maize and we'll be exporting a lot.
Yeah.
And we don't even have to put price controls, because there'll be a lot of maize on the market. And we also want to encourage, like a charity in Kitwe, we want to make sure that we give out land. You can't be encouraging the citizens and say, no, you need to grow maize, you need to grow food, and yet they don't have land. So we want to encourage Zambians to grow their own food. If we give a charity 1 hectare or 2 hectares of land, maybe in Pongo there near Quito, I believe she can do wonders with that land. She can grow her own food, enough food and excess to sell. So that is the kind of policy that we want. That's why land for us is a critical issue, because once we distribute land fairly to a majority of Zambians, it's easy for us to encourage them to say, go and grow your own food, because we want to liberalize the maize market.
Yeah.
We don't want to be putting controls, because once people are able to grow their food, then it means that food is cheap. But to achieve that, we need to give them land.
Yeah. Sure. Mr. Banda, your closing remarks. Mind you, we've got a request for your contact details, which I'll give you the platform to just maybe share with the gentleman who called that they want it, but also just your closing remarks in about a minute. What next for PAC? What should people expect in the next few months?
My closing remarks really is on the fact that it's urgent that this country finds the right solutions.
Yeah.
This idea of going into the elections just to vote and change people should not happen in 2026. We have to create 400,000 jobs per year, minus the backlog going forward.
Yeah.
So every year that we don't create 400,000 jobs, we are accumulating another 400, which means it's bringing to 800,000 plus the backlog. The poverty levels are going up. We need to reverse that. The more we sustain these poverty levels, the more we are getting into a deeper ditch. Young people already don't have opportunities like Mr. Phiri, who is called from Kalundu. They want opportunities.
Yeah.
We need to create opportunities. We don't want these young people to be criminals, to start fighting with the police. Right? So, for us to achieve that, we need new solutions. Two solutions are important. One, we need to have a government that is working for the people, not a government that says just looks at political interests.
Yeah.
Two, we need to change the economic systems. We must start protecting the Zambian economy for the Zambians. That is what we need to do.
Yeah.
And I think, and you can agree with me that PAC is the one that's giving you that solution. And I believe that it will be an honor, to be given that opportunity next year to be a president, and also for PAC to be in government. And we promise that once you give us that opportunity, we shall ensure that we deliver and bring about real change in this country.
Yeah.
So the numbers?
Yes.
There are two numbers that you can call. There's 0970 701271, 0970 701271, also 0977 477 590.
Okay.
0977 477 590. So I think from those numbers we can be guided on how we move forward.
All right.
In getting involved with PAC.
All right. So at this point, I'd like to just thank you, Mr. Banda, for coming through to the Political Podcast. Hope to see you very soon when you're in full gear as we head into the elections.
I hope to be back soon. I can see that you're dealing with a different audience, and thank you so much for Power FM or Power Group for bringing us
Media House,
Power Media House. Bring us. We're very grateful.
No, thank you very much. So that was Mr. AndyFord Banda, who is the president for the People's Alliance for Change. He was our guest this lovely Wednesday morning in today's episode. See me next week again. Let's see who we get next week. But otherwise, don't forget to subscribe or like our YouTube channel. You'll find a rerun of this and the previous podcasts so that you can pick up a few points from our guests. But otherwise, it's all from me. My name is Yowela Chomba. Have a good day and good morning.